I've just returned from the World Fantasy Convention in Brighton, which was a really good event. Like lots of networking, lots of idea gathering. I only bought one book, which was very, very good of me. But obviously came back with like lists and lists of recommendations, of things to explore, of things to think about. And I think it's going to take me a while to sort of process all the information. But it was a really good event. I just hope that I don't get sick afterwards because obviously there are like lots of people in one place, and even though there was sort of a policy to not sit clumped together so much, but sort of spread out and wear a mask if you want to. I think it's just inherently, especially using public transport, there might always something might come up. Um, this week will be much more quieter. I have sort of a break week in between. I've already done a bit of planning because I realized that I might want to do the Fantasy Con next year, which is in Glasgow, which is an awful long way away, but could be worse. So I've been looking at maybe doing Glasgow in October next year. But I also booked EasterCon, which is in Birmingham next year and much more close. So I basically put a reservation on a hotel and signed up for the conference or for the convention. And that's going to be interesting. Because I've never done EasterCon before, but I think with these roaming conventions, I really need to sort of when they're in the area where I sort of can get to, and it's not too horrible for me to travel. I think I really should give them a try. So that's what I'm doing next year. Um, and then I am in chapter 14 of tentatively 24 chapters. I'm in like a one of those slumpy periods, not really slumpy, but where I know what the next step is. I know the next plot point I want to get to, but there's sort of a lot of finding the main character finds herself in a situation that she's not quite sure what's going on. There are new people around her, and there's also people who she's not quite sure whether she can trust them. She also de- starts to develop some feelings for someone who has helped her, and she's in a position where she's now usually they wouldn't be the kind of person she would be interested in, but because her situation has changed and because she's sort of on a roll with changing her whole personality because of her circumstances, she looks at them with a much more like, oh, they're really kind, they're really helpful, but they're still not overbearing. They might have a bit of an issue with boundaries, but it's not horrible. Um, they're just very, yeah, very kind. And this is a trait that hasn't really come up with her before with attraction to people. And it's all like obviously bound up in her becoming at least a slightly better person. I don't know. I'm not going to give her like a full redemption arc because I think one of the things that I like about her is that she's flawed and that she isn't afraid to admit that some of the flaws are absolutely integral to her character. um, so I think I'm sort of in that where the plot slows down to because it approaches an important point. Um, and that's always a weird place to be in. I'm not as, I think, because it's not such a big project as the last one, like Dragon Watch, I'm not so concerned because of it, because it's much more easier with a smaller project, a shorter project, to shorten, to adjust, to fix stuff in the second draft. And I've left myself lots of notes like, change this, to that, for example, it also depends on what information I'm taking on. For example, there's a not a discussion, but there's a point of where it is brought up that some of the colors that they use in their clothes is one of them is purple, and where do you get purple? And sort of, I originally went with it's called sort of sea snails or snails as it was. But then I saw something online where you can actually get purple, I mean, from mushrooms. There's a bit more chemistry involved, but that gave me the idea, oh, why do the snail thing? That's sort of the more um, more known thing. Why not do a mushroom thing? Because that's more interesting. It's a really small point. I mean, I'm interested in all things yarn and dyeing and stuff. Um, so I've basically left myself a note: go back and change that to mushroom dyeing. But very granular point. So I think also because at the convention I was still sort of adding to the story, but I didn't feel that great about it. I think it's always when I'm slightly distracted, I feel the need to write, but what's the result isn't necessarily the best result that could be had. And then I feel a bit about it. And now I think I'm sort of, yes, so the big convention is behind me. I'm safely back home. I can relax a bit more. And now let's get back to business. I think that's probably sort of the motto of this week's vlog. And then, yeah, more planning for next year as well. So I'm starting to think a bit more about that, and also about, like, I think I gave myself February as like the big planning month to sort out which events, in particular local events, I want to do, and like do more research and or contact people as well. I think February is sort of, because it's January a bit slumpy, a good month to do it and create some excitement for the next year for myself, or for the ongoing year. As I'm still thinking about it, the next event will be in 2 weeks' time, uh, on the day that the sixth volume of the Slow Moon series releases, and that's the local author showcase at Newbury Library. And I'm really looking forward to that, because Newbury Library is one of my favorite places, and obviously it's sort of my stomping ground as well. Um, and the last year when I did it was really enjoyable, especially again because of all the authors that you see there, and because I'm basically sitting everywhere writing. Lots of people come up to me and say, "I've seen you write somewhere." So yes, I'm I'm about. It actually happened today again. I was at my local coffee shop, and I think it was the guy who fixes the coffee machine and goes, because he goes through quite a few coffee places to work there. And it happens a lot that people say, "Do you mind me asking, are you writing a book?" I mentioned before, I think that's because I'm writing longhand. If you're in front of a laptop, lots of people just assume you're working like a sort of a spreadsheet job. But if you're writing longhand and you're writing quite a bit and it doesn't look as if you're journaling, people will assume it's something creative and ask you about it. And that happened again this morning, which was nice. And then I basically said to him, yes. And then there's the local author showcase. And then he said, oh, that sounds interesting. I might come and drop by and see who's there. And that's a nice thing to happen as well. So, yeah, this week, a bit more relaxed, but forging ahead. And my idea list is growing and growing. At the convention, I had the opportunity to talk to people who are also publishing, like small indie presses. I don't know whether there's going to be any room for collaboration, um, because the fact is that there's a lot here, but I don't have the funds for like producing it all as quickly as I would like. So I don't know. Maybe there is like a very slim chance, but you never know, to, yeah, as I said, work together on a project. But that's all very much in the stars. For now, I'm forging ahead with two titles for next year. The first is Everything the Sun Touches, which is still out for ARC reading if you're interested in something like this. It's still on NetGalley, it's still on Booksprout. And then the next one will be Way Back When. And I've just done the typesetting and actually another pass through it. So that's well on the way. I just need to see when I can buy my next lot of ISBNs so I can forge ahead and order some proof copies. So 2026 is sort of, yeah, all planned out. And then we see how we go from there. See you in a bit. It's Wednesday and I've just been to the market because my everything is quite depleted. I've done a bit more of a basic haul today. I got some leeks because I want to make leek soup later. Some ginger, one orange. Whenever I buy a whole net of oranges, I eat too many at once, and then bad things happen. So only one orange. These were on offer like custard apples, but they they don't really look that nice anymore. But usually, when you buy them here, they're too unripe anyway. So I yeah, got a few small ones here. So let's see. Um, and another cabbage. Um, three small aubergines because they look pretty good, and then some onions. So very basic, as I said. Um, more stuff that will keep me in soup for a bit. Um, and then I also had quite a good writing session. And yesterday I had a bit of a bummer day. Um, I don't know, I was a bit not let down, but I don't know, it just felt a bit vulnerable. Um, today is better again. I also got another message that they sold another scarf of mine, which is amazing, another biggish piece. So I think I need to knit a bit faster and give them another one. I went by the library and picked up my fantasy hauls, finally come in. Among the Burning Flowers, I've only so far read The Priory of the Orange Tree. It took me two tries to make it all the way through, but I definitely want to read more from the series. And because sort of the big prequel is so chunky, I thought I do this one first. Then Lives of Bitter Rain, which is sort of a novella in the Tyrant Philosophers um, series by Adrian Tchaikovsky. I've read the other ones, but in a weird order, and I really liked them. So I thought, yeah, that's again a shorter one. I've already um, surpassed my reading goal for this year, but it's not really about that anyway. I usually put it quite low just to don't get discouraged. And then I got Strange Beasts by Susan J. Morris because she was at the World Fantasy Convention and read a bit from the second book, and I found that really interesting because it's sort of a Victorian London play on the setting and has two female main characters who get involved with all sorts of fantastic creatures. So yeah, so um, because this has been out for quite a while, I think I will read this last because it's probably much more renewable. So with the other ones, I don't know whether I need to give them back quite quickly. I'm still working my way through Wild Reverence by Rebecca Ross. I'm enjoying it though. I think it's quite slow paced, which is not a bad thing. I mean, some of my books are much slower paced than others, but I'm now sort of over half of it, and usually, as so many people find, so the first half is quite sort of you work your way up, and then you finish it quite quickly. So this is what I'm hoping as well, because yeah, as you see, I now have a lot of stuff to read. Um, yeah, let's see how that goes. And then I've booked a swimming session at the lake on Saturday. So at the moment, it's really quite mild outside. It's a bit weird. Um, but I think the water temperature is now under 10 degrees. So let's see. I still haven't bought any neoprene gloves because they didn't have any more at the lake last time. So yeah, if I find some gloves this time, I might buy them just in case. It's a really strange thing now. I definitely last time I felt that at a certain point I start to get in the still in the water while I'm swimming. I get all glowy as if sort of my temperature is powering up. Um, and that's I think part of the why the cold water swimming is slightly addictive to me at least, because it's sort of the from the core. So yeah, maybe too much information. Um, apart from like the knitting projects that I'm doing, and also spinning some Gotland, which has a lovely grey. I want to knit some thick socks, especially for swimming, when because the woolly socks that I have are quite tight. Um, when you put them on, and especially if your feet are a bit damp, they're a pain to get in. So I want some with like a really stretchy, um, yeah, they're really stretchy, and I just can get them on. And wool is the best thing anyway for keeping warm. So or getting warm again. So yeah, more for normal Wednesday to be honest, but that's good. Um, I desperately need to clear the decks somewhat because after the conference or after the convention, I was just, "Ugh." And before, I mean, I did like brought up the rubbish and did the washing up and everything, but I didn't take care to tidy, and I think that's now biting me in the bum. Where I'm reaching the point where it's difficult to ignore the chaos. I can do that very well until a certain point, and then something needs to be done immediately. That's usually how it goes. But yeah, then I'll probably see you at the lake on Saturday. See you in a bit. It's Sunday. And I've actually done a fair bit of writing this week. Um, because this manuscript is so much shorter, I'm actually now in the slump and yeah, well, I think my mental health suffers every single time. Um, before I pick myself back up to finish the manuscript, I think that's where I am now. Um, I went to the lake yesterday, which was amazing, and really because the weather was unexpectedly nice, that helped a lot. But I'm also finding is that I need to make an effort to not look at my reviews because it's a bit different because everything the sun touches is out for ARC reviewing at the moment. So it's a bit of a different situation. I usually don't look at my reviews anyway, but for this one, because it's sort of out in the open via NetGalley, it's just that you keep an eye on it, to be honest. But I'm really trying to stop myself and not go further into the depth because I sincerely believe that reviews are for readers, they're not for the author. Um, Obviously, with ARC reading, it's sort of an in between thing, sometimes at least. But I definitely would not want to get involved or get, I don't know, tastes are so different. I'm very aware that the books I write are not for everyone and that they sort of get a really varied sort of response, which is mirrored by where the feedback is at the moment. But I think it's very true that if you can't handle that, you really shouldn't be publishing in a way because I agree. Once you're asking people to pay money for your product, they don't have any obligation whatsoever to mince their words because they bought it and they have their opinions about the product. But because it's art, it can be, yeah, just something that hits very close to the bone. And where I'm very aware that I really shouldn't maybe just not even look at the average. I definitely, I like not start to research, oh, where is this rating posted? Where is this rating posted? I know it can be really difficult to hold yourself back from, um, yeah, just wanting to read like what's being said and at least inside refute what's being said. Um, but I guess it all depends like what people want to get out of books. Um, I twist tropes and sometimes that goes wrong for people. I'm very aware of that, which is also one of the reasons why indie publishing was the way that I went ultimately, because again, I'm very aware that my books are polarizing in a way, and that's exactly um, what is being reflected. And so I'm really trying to not get too hung up about that. And as sort of as I'm saying, I don't really give advice, but to stay out of the review section especially if you're in a bit of a wobbly, um, yeah, a bit in a wobbly circumstance at the moment with your current writing. I think is a good idea. Also because then, so if your sadness about the feedback can influence your ability to do it better the next time. And I think that's sort of the thing why I also don't want to get hung up about stuff and why I give myself a lot of time in between drafts, in between first draft and then publication, because I need this distance as well. Because while something's being published and might not meet people, or people might not meet it with the feelings that you'd hope for, there's something else you can focus on, make sure that you're developing your skills. And especially for someone who includes themes that are currently very much like a political punching ball, you can get your stuff on all sorts of wrong sides. People object to all sorts of things. Um, and what I'm trying to do is just to make sure I do my due diligence, sensitivity readers, like sitting with like the stuff that I want to express and just have been relatively clear about what I want to convey. And then it needs to go from there. And in a way, I always tell myself, at least if it's a mixed rating, it tells people you didn't only get your mates to read it. It's very much out in the open. And all sorts of people are now able to express their opinions on them. And in a way, that's good as well. So, yeah, that's sort of where I'm at the moment. Um, I might go and write a bit more today. I haven't gone out to write um, this morning because I'm trying to have a sort of a slow Sunday, and um, also, yeah, just to try and take a few breathers in between. I might still get some coffee later on and do a few pages. But as I said, I'm sort of in that weird little bit, and I also know that I have to adjust an awful lot going back on that manuscript. There's so much where, again, where I change my mind quite rapidly, actually. I tried to do an adjusted outline. I don't think really that it worked. Um, because I think it's too much up in the air now. I'm still sort of figuring out motivations and the twists and everything. Um, I mean, I did have sort of the big thing from the beginning, but I don't want to do it in a straight way. I want to do it in a wiggly way where you don't see it coming from 1,000 miles off. That's what I'm at least hoping to do. So, and as I said before, for this one, I'm noticing that I'm not writing as fast, which is also a good thing. I'm also become a bit preoccupied, let's say, with looking at beautiful fountain pens. Um, I don't know why. Why it might have been because there was the stationery workshop at the World Fantasy Convention, and I got to try quite a few nice pens. And then um, once you have a closer look at a few Instagram ads in that direction. You will get more ads for fountain pens. And I have a fountain pen that I can't really use at the moment because the paper in the notebook isn't great for fountain pens. So why would I want another one? But I find myself getting hung up, or not hung up, but sucked into videos where people will try out lovely fountain pens. Yeah, okay. Does not make any sense, especially as I have recently gone through my sort of stationery box stuff and found a few old pens that I could try to use again. I think the thing is that when I was younger, I really liked the really thick nibs, and now I don't anymore. So I don't know if I will actually use them, but I can at least give them a try and see whether they might work for me again. And with that, is sort of a not a wildly aesthetic, but a mildly hopeful end to the vlog. Next week, I will have my local author showcase, which was really great fun last time. So I actually booked a bigger table this time because I also have more books this time. Um, and then, yeah, we'll see how that goes. And until then, thank you so much for watching. If you would like to subscribe and give me a like, that would be amazing. Um, and if you want to have like a taste of my writing, if you subscribe to my newsletter, I will send you an EPUB sign-up gift of the first volume of my Slow Moon series, and then you can see where you fall on the spectrum, whether it's something for you or it's not your style. As I said, it's all taste. So until then, thank you so much for watching again, and goodbye.